Hey everybody, welcome back to Field Pass Podcast. This is Zach and Braden here to give you the weekly breakdown of NFL football. It's October 25th today, and in Columbus, Ohio, the temperature is falling as fast as Caleb Williams draft capital. Uh, so let's walk us in to our next week in the NFL today, Braden. What do we have for our headlines?
Uh, Number one, which was probably the most shocking, are the Lions same old Lions. I mean, we hear Lions fans say that almost every year about them, and they got mollywopped on Sunday. It was 35-0 in the first half. The game was over in the second quarter. I mean, they didn't get a first down the first like 3-4 possessions. The Ravens owned them. They I mean, they didn't really do much in the second half because they didn't need to. The game was already out of hand. They probably didn't want Lamar injured or anything like in the past. This game was a disaster for the Lions, and I mean, the question is, like, are they showing their old self?
I don't know, man. I don't think that this is like a death sentence for the Lions by any means. I think that this definitely pours water on their idea of what this season was supposed to be. And this was really, other than the Chiefs, who really haven't really been dominant in the way that they have been before, uh, this was supposed to be their biggest and baddest opponent. And they did not live up to the call of duty by any means. When you look at the stats for Goff, it doesn't look particularly awful. I mean, he uh he was 33 for 53, 284 yards. So you're up there against a pretty decent and formidable defense. No passing touchdowns though, and I think that that's the killer. Additionally, Jahmyr Gibbs, you only had him out there for 11 carries with David Montgomery out for a pretty notable injury. Um, Only ran for 68 yards and a touchdown. But I think the bigger story of this particular game is just the return to form that we've seen for Lamar Jackson, especially when you give him the cast that he has right now. In this particular game, you saw the wide receiver core kind of step up to the task. You see that connection with Mark and Andrews start to pop up again, and I really think that this is what the ceiling for the Baltimore Ravens look like at this point. I, as an AFC North football fan, fear if this is not the ceiling. But there's no stopping Lamar Jackson when he's like this, and as long as the health of the team is intact, I fear that this is just going to be this is just going to be the Ravens, not only like of the past in which like we saw that Lamar Jackson MVP season, but we could be seeing another one in the making right now, if we really don't see those injuries that people have warned the Ravens about. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, going back to you talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. First of all, one reason they only gave the ball to him 11 times is because they were down 35-0 before they could do anything on offense. They
Hmm.
didn't have time for him to do anything. Um, but with this Ravens team, I mean, yeah, that offense, it was they were clicking unlike and they struggled in the past two games. I mean, they were in London against the Titans and in Pittsburgh, and they didn't play the greatest. I mean, they improved each week, but I mean, they really put it all together here. And yeah, I mean, it's if they can keep playing like this, we need to watch out because I mean, we're both fans of the AFC North, and it could get real bad real fast if we don't start paying attention to this Ravens team.
Yeah, the Lions were down 28 at the end of the first half, and over the course of the entire game, just guess for a second how many yards they were averaging per play, the
And
Ravens.
the Ravens,
Hmm.
like 13 or 14.
Now that would be crazy, but it's nine, which is
It felt
crazy in and
like
of
13 or
itself.
14.
But you're right, it did feel like that by the end of the first half. They really didn't get any points until the fourth quarter, and at that point they only scored six. So it's just a, a a true thrashing by the Ravens, and Um, it's quite a statement that they're making to the league right now. And as a person who likes Lamar and like likes watching him, despite him being in my division, like being a bigger threat to me than anyone else, I really enjoy watching him play, and I really enjoy seeing him kind of like ascend to this like dominant status again. Uh, I don't hope that he continues it. My hope is that we continue to see situations in which Lamar is just completely overperforming everyone on his team, but is somehow isn't just able to make it happen. Uh, but that's just me showing my cards, and maybe that's saying too much. All right, moving us on to our second headline of the week. One kind of conversation that we had in a couple of few episodes past is the fact that with losing Justin Jefferson, uh, the Vikings were put in a pretty difficult spot. The decision was, uh, do we blow this thing up? Do we evaluate what the team looks like going forward? Do we see Kirk Cousins potentially waive his no trade clause? And really, this hasn't happened at all. In fact, the Vikings are 2-0 without Justin Jefferson, going against one of the more formidable opponents in the entirety of the NFL last week, and that of the 49ers. Brayden, what do you make of this 2-0 run without their star wide receiver Jefferson?
I mean, I think you start off with the play of Kirk Cousins right now. I mean, Monday night he was 35 for 45, 378, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Jordan Addison has stepped up big time. He 7 catches on 10 targets for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I don't think he played. I don't know if he played the fourth quarter. I don't remember if he came back in, but he got hurt like either late third, early fourth, and was out almost the rest of the game. And I mean, this offense, they're finally not really. I mean, Kirk did have 1 interception, but I mean, his QBR was still 80, and they didn't really turn the ball over that much. I mean, they they didn't fumble the ball or anything, so they had 1 turnover. They're not turning the ball over very much, and they're putting points on the board. And then the defense is turning people over. We saw we saw them turn the Bears over multiple times last week, and we saw them pick Purdy off twice and recover a fumble from McCaffrey. So they won the turnover differential. And I think that's what cost them so much in the early games is that they could not stop turning the ball over, especially in like the red zone. They would drive all the way down and then fumble the ball or something. So I think the first thing you gotta look at is turnover battle. Then you see Kirk Cousins play, and then yeah, defense. I mean, that's just really the three main factors to them winning right now.
Yeah, they were really able to lean on the pass. The Vikings, that is, with Alexander Madison really only having 8 carries, and then they kind of got Cam Akers involved there towards the end of the game, which was kind of interesting to see. They're kind of taking it not fully by committee, but to get Cam Akers involved was really interesting, and they kind of used him as like a mobile receiving halfback. So um, interesting that they felt like that Addison was capable to lean on, and I mean he was. He had 7 receptions for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Um, the Niners turnover problems were an issue. You had 2 interceptions by Purdy, which you really have I personally have no idea what the decision making process was for that. It wasn't as bad as maybe Desmond Ridder with two fumbles on the 1 yard line. But with that being said, not great play by Brock Purdy. And here's the thing, they didn't look like the dominant Niners that we had seen prior to the Cleveland game. Am I mm, I don't I've been listening to a couple of podcasts, and there are theories floating around like when you play a game that is as like detrimental to the health of the players. I mean, we saw Debo leave in that particular game. You saw Trent Williams leave in that particular game, and then you saw McCaffrey leave. Now they're back. Now McCaffrey is back, but this team still looked pretty gassed, like in comparison to a Vikings offense, which really shouldn't be putting up that many numbers on them. I mean, 22 points in the Niners is a feat in and of itself. So I don't know if this is just a situation that continues to follow the Niners. It could have been a bad matchup. You were away for the second week in a row. I don't think this is anything particular about the 49ers as a whole. And I think you can just kind of, not that you can like write this game off like it doesn't matter at all, but I don't think you should try and like you could try and take any trends out of this particular game.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree. The Kirk Cousins play was really, really solid, and you can't really say anything else about him other than that. Um, he's dependable, and I think going forward, I don't know what the play is because the Vikings have kind of had to settle for Kirk Cousins, and there's been this line of dialogue that he's not productive in primetime games, which I
He
mean,
stepped up though.
to a certain degree has merit, but I mean, you stepped up on a Monday night game and was able to kind of punch one of the bigger teams in the mouth. Um, so I don't know what the path is going forward in terms of the QB play for the Vikings, because I know that a lot of their fans were probably hoping that they would kind of get involved in that Caleb Williams sweepstake, or like get kind of a foot in the door in this pretty heavy draft class.
This
But
team isn't done yet though.
no,
They're
they're
not.
not.
A lot of people were counting them up. I mean, even me and you were questioning them 2 weeks ago, but I mean, they've bounced back to 3-4. They still got like we both said this. No matter how bad they look, they still got a whole season in front of them. So I
And they
mean,
have some pretty decent games going ahead. They have Packers,
they play.
Falcons, Vikings,
Yeah,
Broncos in the next four,
yeah. So they
and
they
then
could
Bears.
really turn this around and then hopefully get Jefferson back, which everyone's been like, there's been swirls of Jefferson this, Jefferson that. From what like his attitude, he was on the sideline on a Monday night game, which he does. I mean, he doesn't have to be. He could be very easily be rehabbing that hamstring, and he's like celebrating with the team. So I think he's not done in Minnesota yet. Kirk Cousins is obviously not done, but the way he's playing. Yeah, that this would be an interesting story. This would be they've started kind of like the Bengals, where they were rocky and they've turned it on 2 weeks in a row. So we'll see how both these teams, but moving on to our second AFC North player. I'm not even going to speak on this because I think I should just give this to you, but just Miles Garrett is all I'm going to say, and I'm going to let you have the floor on this, on what he did for your team on Sunday.
Yeah, the two most important players for the Browns franchise of this week was Miles Garrett and a person who wasn't even on the team prior to like 2 weeks before the offseason or something like that, and a guy named Dustin Hopkins. One is AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and one is AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. These two players in and of itself, and kind of we'll give PJ Walker a little bit of the credit, won the game against the Indianapolis Colts with Miles Garrett having a strip sack in the end zone, a blocked field goal, numerous amount of sacks. I think he broke Brown's records during this particular game, and just generally a complete defensive masterclass. I mean, this has potential to be the best game of Miles Garrett's career. Now, I mean, I'm not going to put a ceiling on, but so far I would say you could put this up in the top three for sure.
Oh yeah,
And it just goes
100%.
to show that when you have playmakers like Miles Garrett, even when, like I mentioned before with the 49ers, how they were coming off that really physical game, like the Browns defense, I still believe that they are top two defense in the league, despite kind of getting torn apart by Gardner Minshew. I mean, you had a couple of runs where Minshew was just on the money and was able to get it to Pittman. There was on one of the last offensive Colts drive, I think he threw a slant to Pittman, or was it in route, something like that, and Pittman just completely, essentially, just shrugged off Greg Newsome. It wasn't the greatest game for them. Um, but with that being said, Miles Garrett single-handedly won this game for us, and I think he deserves his flowers. Now, people are always going to try and compare him to TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, etc. But this was the game that if you're Miles Garrett, you needed to step up if you are going to be seen as a leader for this team. Now, just coming from a person who's inside the Browns circles, like understands and digests Browns media all the time, there are all these people who always want to try and put this like leadership responsibility on Miles Garrett, want him to like kind of step up to the plate and like be this like overbearing like figure for the Browns defense to like make it happen. And I don't think that that necessarily has to be the case. I think all you need to do is you need to get a bunch of people who are one bought in, like people like Juan Thornhill, who has been able to unite the team around this drive and this swagger. You need competent coaching, and you got that in Jim Schwartz. And you just need guys who are able to produce on a week to week basis, and that's in the case of Miles Garrett. And I just think that when you have a formula like that, that's how you get a top three defense like the Browns. But with that being said, Miles Garrett was the guy this week, and I don't really think that can be understated, his impact, or you can understate his impact for this particular week.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely. I feel like he's gone quiet most of the year. I mean, he may have had a couple plays in there, but he asserted his dominance again. I mean, yes, teams were studying for him, but like to like let's say like a casual of the NFL, you're not really thinking there's no reason to think of Miles Garrett on a normal Sunday, like because he hasn't really done anything this year. And but this week everyone knew what he did. I mean, it was two forced fumbles, right? I'm pretty sure. Two
He
forced fumbles.
had, yeah.
Yeah,
Let me
like
let me get up the stats for example.
bro, that was a great performance by him. I mean, like he said, he carried the Browns to victory, and that's what for a prime time for a big time player like that, that's what you need to happen.
Yeah, I think if you pay attention to the stats for Miles Garrett for this particular season, I mean, he has good stats, don't get me wrong, but it's like it's not this thing where you would see him and like this is the defensive player of the year per se. But when you look at the impact that he has on the field with the way that Jim Schwartz moves these guys around, it's they the scheme isn't essentially padding his stats by any means. Like you could have Miles Garrett lining up in like the center of the tackles. And I don't know if people saw this, but he had that cross up like he was dribbling a basketball and just completely rushed through the line. He's getting pressure, and also we have like people like Zadarius Smith who has yet to register a large degree of sacks, but he's still getting that pressure alongside the other DTs who are just incredibly dominant at the line of scrimmage as well. So I think if you're willing to actually watch the games and see the impact that he feels, and also the fact that every person that every like lineman he comes into contact with has to hold him, uh, it's kind of really hard to understate Miles Garrett's impact on this team. So really glad that he was able to actually like be an individual instead of being just a part of like a unit for this week though. Um, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Glad we were able to give Miles his flowers. We do need to have this unfortunate conversation though about the Browns game, and
And
really about
others.
a number of games that we had this week, especially the Steelers Rams spot, which was pretty abysmal. But I guess the conversation or just the headline for this particular part of the discussion is: are the refs controlling the outcome of these games like too much? Because obviously you need refs to ensure that people aren't breaking rules, you're not picking people up, slamming to the ground, you're not having excessive injury or anything like that. But are they getting too involved? What do you think, Braden?
Yes, I mean he gave two people a W with I know I just said Miles Garrett won the Browns game, but I don't know about this pass. The illegal contact, that was illegal contact. I think that most people agree with that, even though it was kind of like the Ohio State Penn State one on Saturday. I don't know if people know about that on Marvis Harrison Jr. with the holding. It nullified a strip sack touchdown, but it is a penalty. This pass interference on DPJ, man, I don't know how, like even if it was catchable, it didn't really look like PI. And the ball lay it was basically in the first row. Like, and yes, the Browns were inside the five, but it put them right on the one. And it's not like they scored the play after. It took them four more tries, or third or fourth down whenever they got it. So yeah, that had an impact on the game. No, didn't was it not the sole reason the Browns won? It was a pretty good one though. And then this fourth down spot on the Rams Steelers, that was BS because it wasn't like close. The I feel like it was not the refs give bad spots all the times. But one thing that didn't help is they can't review that. They can't. They're just relying I mean, their eye needs to be pretty good, but they're just relying on what they see on the field. And when you see a whole pile move forward, you want to like spot it where the pile is when you make because it's kind of hard to see a quarterback in all those bodies. But I mean, the refs, I mean, they controlled two out. They were the reason two teams won. Or I wouldn't say that. They controlled the outcome of the game. I would say they made it, they literally gave a team the win in the Steelers, and they made it a lot easier for the Browns, and the Browns finished. So I don't know. And I mean, we could also bring up the Eagles Dolphins game with some of the I mean, it was 10 penalties to Eagles, or 10 penalties to Dolphins, 0 to Eagles. I don't know. I don't know what that is either, but I mean, I think something it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I think that when people get mad about these things, they tend to ignore the rest of the game was played to put them in that close of a situation. Um, but they're really upsetting. I mean, I still remember to this day, the Browns played the Chiefs in the playoffs, and you had that helmet to helmet contact, and nothing was called. And that was essentially the end of the Browns' playoff aspirations under Baker Mayfield. And like that stings. Like I still remember exactly where I was when I watched that. Um, but the fact of the matter is we just let Chad Henne dice up that team for like that. Chad Henne dice up that defense for numerous quarters for that game. So, like on one hand, I understand that these these calls are incredibly impactful, but there's also a whole other game that was played to for you to be in that position. Um, that Steelers spot was atrocious. It essentially did give him the win at that point. It was the end of that game, and I agree. I think that should be reviewable. I think in the case of the Browns, I think the illegal contact call was actually pretty fair. Like I think that the, the way I think he just got beat and grabbing Cooper like that, you're going to get a call. I do think though that pass interference call was pretty bogus. And as a fan who's biased and willing to is partial to their team winning, that was pretty bogus. With that being said, though, it was on first down, and there were still a couple other downs called. And I don't think the plays that Stefanski called in the 1 yard line he would have called being that far out from the end zone. I think that I'm not sure if that would have changed history, but it's possible that it did. So we just kind of have to wonder. I think that the refs have kind of been catching a lot of flack, and they'll always catch flack when they decide games like this, kind of like they did in the Super Bowl against the Eagles and the Chiefs. Um, but I don't know. It's just something that you have to kind of account for if you're a coach, if you're a player. The refs are another component of the game, and if the calls aren't coming your way, it's just something that you have to account for um, going through the game. And sometimes that results in wins, sometimes that results in losses. I'm not saying that this is like a great thing. I'm not saying that this is okay or this is the way it should be. It's just something that it's just the way that it is. And if there are changes that could be made to mitigate these like games being won by or by ref decisions, I'm willing to look into it. But yeah, don't want to brush over the fact that some of those calls are really bad, including those that went for my team. And then finally, let's talk about the Bills. In a match against the Patriots this particular weekend, we saw the Pats go up pretty big, with the Bills mounting a drive back towards kind of a clamoring towards the Patriots trying to mitigate that score differential, but they couldn't get it done. You had the Patriots defense kind of stuff up Josh Allen, resulting in an interception by them, and then Mac Jones actually only missed 5 of his 30 passes that he threw, throwing for more yards than Josh Allen did that entire day, with 2 passing touchdowns. So, what do you think the issue is here with the Bills, Braden?
I think it's the offense. I don't know what it is, like what's going on there. I don't know if it's play calling or if it's Josh Allen or what, but I mean, the last 3 games they played at London in Jacksonville and lost 25-20. Josh Allen threw 27 for 40, 359, 2 touchdowns and interception, a QBR of 89. Then they play a controversial game again against the Giants. He's 19 for 30, 169, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, QBR of 52. And then he's in this Patriots game. You mentioned Mac Jones, but Josh Allen was 27 41, 265, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception again, and QBR of 69. And it's just like it's an inconsistency offense. In the past 3 games, they've scored 20, 14, and then what was it, 22 or 25. So I mean, they're just not I mean, 25 can win you games. I mean, in some games, but that has to be real low scoring games for you to score with like 20 points. I mean, they won a low scoring game with 14, and they got away with that win, which is another rough controversy going back to the last topic. But it's just these. I don't know because had like they killed the Raiders, they killed the Commanders, and then they killed the Dolphins, all with great offensive performances. Josh Allen was looking like he's back, and then they pulled off these three. So I don't really know what's going on. I just know something needs to change offensively because I mean the defense isn't playing that bad. 'Cause, I mean they've let up. I mean this game they did let up 29 to the Patriots offense, which is a little concerning based on how they've played. But in the other two games they haven't played terrible, and so I think the offense just needs more production, really.
Yeah, I mean, well, first that kind of something that backs up that line of dialogue is the Bills they didn't score any points in the in the first three quarter. What is that? The Bills last three first quarter. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the offensive production was lacking for sure. Initially, Josh Allen was holding the ball a whole lot longer than he normally does, which just kind of speaks to the corner room for the Patriots just being still a strong room comparatively across the NFL. Even with the loss of that rookie earlier in the season. Um, just looking at his completion chart, anything past 20 yards is almost like a complete write-off. He had one completion over 20 yards and one, two, five incompletions and then one interception. So if he was getting it off quick, he was 17 for 17, but holding on to it way too long, around three and a quarter seconds. So, I mean, I don't know if that just speaks more to the Patriots being playing really good man against these guys, but it's concerning when you have talent like Stephon Diggs not being able to produce against a defense like this. So it's definitely something that they should definitely take into consideration going
For sure.
forward as a team. All right. Well, with that being said, let's head off to our next topic of discussion, and that is the schedule for this week. Brandon, you want to start with the Buccaneers and Bills
Yeah,
for
let's just
our
keep stay
first
on the
game?
Bills here.
Yeah, stay on the
Um,
Bills.
this offense needs to change. I mean, me and you just talked about it literally. And the Buccaneers defense is really good. They pretty much have everyone from the Brady years. I mean, they got Devin White. I mean, they still got Winfield, and um, yeah, and Baker has. I mean, they played decent against the Falcons, and I don't know what's wrong with the Bills, and I'm not really sure. So I am taking Buccaneers. This may. This is probably not going to be a very popular pick, but I don't know. I just think the Buccaneers can get it done, especially if the Bucks offensively keeps playing the way they do. I need to see change for them, and I think if they keep playing against this Buccaneers like how they are against this Buccaneers defense, it can get bad because this Buccaneers defense is very respectable. So they need to have more offense production, and I don't see it coming on Thursday, especially in this quick of turnaround.
Yeah, I think I actually am going to give it to the Bills during this matchup. I think that it's really they're not in a good position in that they have a short week where they just played on that Sunday. But that's kind of mitigated by them being able to come back home to a crowd that's kind of renowned for their capacity to make the other team feel uncomfortable. Um, Baker has been playing okay. He has definitely struggled in comparison to the earlier games in the season where everyone was like, "Oh, Baker's back. The Browns were idiots," or something like that. Like, I don't think that he has continued that level of stardom that he was kind of producing with earlier in the season, and I think that he will struggle to kind of lead this offense actually in Buffalo. So give me the Bills for this one. I don't think it'll be particularly dominant though by any means. I think Josh Allen's going to make a couple stupid mistakes. He's going to throw probably two interceptions, but they're just going to find a way to win.
Yeah, I mean Baker was 27, 42, 275 touchdown interception. A QBR of 45, which isn't the greatest, but I mean that's like game like we've been saying all year he's a game manager, and that's game manager-esque. I mean, you probably are going to need to see a little Baker, especially out of this running game. They had 73 yards on the Falcons, which is very concerning. But yeah, they need to. I just think they're going to be able to get it done, just because I'm not seeing this production from Bills.
I previously, like if you didn't watch this week, you you would have kind of a false understanding of the Bills. I think you would probably kind of assume that this game would just be a stinker, but I actually think that we're in for a good showing
Yeah, I
uh
think it will be
on Thursday.
competitive, especially because this Bucks defense will keep them in the game.
hmm All right, Jets Giants. We have a Jersey New York matchup here. Um, Really interesting to see how the Giants kind of play this one, especially since we kind of talked about this last week. Uh, I don't know if we did this in the pod. It may have been off of, but Tyrod Taylor looked a little bit better than Daniel Jones, and I think we may be not having a conversation that we need to, and that it's not so much about the strength of the strength of Tyrod Taylor, more about kind of was Daniel Jones or this like idea of Daniel Jones kind of inflated due to just the general production of the Giants offense last season, and are they going to regret giving him all that money? And if so, are we already seeing that? Um, so I don't trust Daniel Jones to be able to go against this Jets defense, which should have all their playmakers back. If anything, they're going to garner that production from Saquon Barkley being able to punish the run defense, who we know for the Jets isn't particularly strong, despite Williams being an incredible defensive tackle. Just don't think he's going to. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be able to make a statement during this game. With all that being said, for some way, the Jets, led by Zach Wilson, have found a way to make things click, and I think the Jets come out with a win on this one.
Yeah, I mean, is Daniel Jones for sure gonna play?
I
I
believe so. I haven't seen anything to. Well, actually, here an article from the New York Post says Daniel Jones stuck in injury limbo as Giants get Andrew Thomas back on field. So
yeah,
it
so
appears not. I guess he's in question.
yeah, I would just start Tyrod till he's fully healthy. They've already come out and saying that once he is healthy, he's gonna start again, which I don't think it's. I mean, we'll see the greatest decision, but this Jets defense is really, I mean, we've talked about how good this defense is, and Zach Wilson's starting to find a rhythm. I mean, they're are they back? They're back at 500, right?
They're
Because
three and
they
three.
were
Yep.
they were off last week, so they got extra time to get Zach Wilson. They really slow things down, and he was already playing decent enough. I think Jets offense surprises people this week. They have a good mix run pass, and they put some points on the board. And
hmm
I think Jets win. I don't think it'll be like a big blowout or anything though. I think it'll be somewhat close, but Jets won in that one. And
Ugly situation for the Giants. I
for
I would
sure.
not want to. I would not want to be
I would
anything.
not be I would not want to be Brian Dable right now.
No, he's mad. Like
Yeah.
you, yeah,
You
he's
can
not.
see it in him.
Yeah, he looks like he's about one more clock mismanagement away from erupting. So
Yeah, for sure. And then moving on, Jags Steelers. Uh Jaguars are coming off Thursday night. Impressive win in New Orleans, and Steelers are coming off the controversy in LA. Um I think the Jags are starting to find themselves offensively, and can I think they have a good enough pass rush with Trayvon Walker, who hasn't played up to his potential, but he's still decent, and Josh Allen, where they can cause some problems for Kenny Pickett. And I think Lawrence, ETN's been doing well. Christian Kirk, Ridley, all of them. I think they'll be able to score some points on the Steelers defense. I think it will still be a low scoring close battle, but I think the Jaguars have enough to be able to hold off the Steelers in this one. I got Jaguars winning.
I don't know. The Jags are valued at Vegas at 2.5, so they're thinking it's going to be close, but I think Jags do come out with the win. I don't know how to feel about this game. I think that this is a really awkward spot for the Jags to be in going up against a defense like this, especially when you're struggling to get some of your playmakers active, like Calvin Ridley only having one catch over the past weekend. Now, a lot of that production is going to Christian Kirk, and ETN is still kind of having these dominant stretches. But I think the Steelers actually win at this one. I think that with the way that they're able to punish the offense with Minka Fitzpatrick, you got Joey Porter Jr. moving around and flying around there as well, who was able to kind of disrupt that Ravens game. And then TJ Watt, obviously, as well, with the kind of performance that he's been showing. I think that the Steelers find a way to win this one. As much as I hate to say it, I think that this is just a game that they find a way to win. And obviously, there was concern about Trevor Lawrence starting last week with that injury. Not being a Jaguars fan, I'm not completely in tune with what that's still like. But a situation like this where he's potentially not 100% and going against a defense like this poses some issues. It could be a situation where he takes a hard sack, and we're looking at Trevor Lawrence either not playing to the highest degree that he can, or potentially, God forbid, you have someone else come in and lead the offense. And in that event, I think that the Steelers have it completely under control. So give me the Steelers in this one. Steelers are at home. Um, I wouldn't want to be in this situation if I'm the Jags. I think that their fan base know and their coaches know that this is a game that's going to be uh, a punch out. But unfortunately, I have too much faith in the Steelers for me to
Yeah,
bet against them.
just one thing about the Trevor Lawrence thing. He has had a full week and a half almost to heal up after this game, which could, I mean, it could be very beneficial for him. I don't know anything on that injury, but I would assume that it's a lot better that he had. Like he didn't play like a full contact game like for a week and a half, so he's a little bit more healthy.
One thing to consider too is, I guess, in the Jags' favor is that they're coming off of a 4-game win streak already. It's They had a rough start to the season, kind of like you can kind of lump them in with that category that we mentioned before, the Vikings. Ultimately, I have a little bit more faith in the Jags, I think. Um, I just think that this is like I saw that defense, uh, and I physically had the smile drawn off my face every time I had to see my offense go out against them, especially when Nick Chubb had that awful injury. Um, they're just the bad guys, and I think that the bad guys are going to win this one out. Eagles Commanders, really interesting game because I really feel the they played the Commanders like
Already in
4
Philly.
weeks ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a really strange kind of get back game opportunity for the Commanders. I just think that the Eagles are going to win this one out. The Commanders, um, even with the talent that they have, I think the morale of that team is completely shot. Uh, although the Eagles are coming off a fairly recent loss to the Jets, even though they were able to kind of win convincingly against the Dolphins. I think just the connection that they have with AJ Brown, who over the course of a couple Jalen Hurts throws was able to just make these crazy like completions. I think that they're going to continue to kind of take advantage of that. And when you have receivers, or sorry, you have cornerbacks that we talked on before who are really struggling. I don't think it gets any better for them. So give me the Eagles on this one.
Um, the one thing the Commanders do is they stop streaks and they beat good teams somehow. This has been their thing ever since Ron Rivera has been here. They came close a couple weeks ago. They're in Washington. I'm actually calling the upset here and going Commanders. I know they stumbled against New York. They had a bad showing, but I think Ron Vera will get them. He'll wake them up for this game. They always turn up in the biggest games that they play, and they, I mean, they're gonna find a way to win this game. I'm calling it. I'm calling the Commanders win
Ain't
this
gonna
game.
happen. Ain't gonna
It's
happen.
gonna
It's
happen.
not
This is
happening.
my upset this week. I
Brandon,
think
you saw Emmanuel Forbes lose like his he looked like he had like watched Bambi and you just saw his Bambi's mom get like shot. That's what AJ Brown did to that dude. It's not happening.
I'm
Book
calling
it.
it.
Book it.
No, no,
It's
no one can change my mind. Not even you. Commanders
okay.
will win
Whatever.
on Sunday, and then we'll come back here next week in about a week's times, and you'll be saying thank you, Braden, for recognizing this greatness in Washington. All right.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Well, yeah. I didn't realize that you're a fan of that little pig they have over in the Commanders.
Hey, who knows? Tyler Heineke may strap up and play this game. If he does, it's for sure game over. So coming up
They
next
need to
is
bring Brissett over to hold on. They need to bring Brissett back to Cleveland. Get me Brissett, and then I'll root for the Commanders. All right. I want Jacoby back. All right, continue.
Rams versus Cowboys. Rams kind of got screwed a week ago. We've talked about it at home and against Pittsburgh, and Cowboys had a week off. They haven't been playing the best. They've been inconsistent. They are coming off the win against the Chargers 2 weeks ago, but I actually have Rams here. I don't know why, but Dak, I just don't trust. I would consider this a bigger game for the Cowboys, and Dak has, and this is against good defense. He hasn't really played the best, and this is a very respectable Rams defense. And I mean, we saw the Stafford to Puka connection go off this week. It could very easily be Stafford Cup or Stafford or Puka again, but I think Rams win this one. I just got a feeling that Rams are going to be able to stretch this one out, and they're going to be angry about last week as well.
I agree. I think that they are going to be pretty angry about last week. They're probably gonna have that fire boiling up in them, but I don't think that's gonna result in the win. I think the Cowboys actually do win this one out, which is weird because I don't know if you have been noticing, but I've been really high on the Rams recently. I think 2 weeks in a row I've picked the Rams in upsets, and they finally done me wrong. Uh, well, actually, yeah, okay. So this is what I did. I picked the Rams over the Eagles. That didn't work out too well. It wasn't that bad. I obviously picked the Rams over the Cardinals, and then I picked the Rams over the Steelers. This is where it ends. I'm picking the Cowboys over the Rams because I think that despite all the criticism they take, I think that the Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup are going to be able to punish the Rams secondary. I think that despite Dak not being able to sort of perform up to the standards that were for everyone's kind of expectation, or I guess he was living up to expectation because so many people are low on Dak, especially given that showing in the Cardinals game. I think they find a way to win. Um, they're not slouches. The Rams are still a very good team, in my opinion, especially with that young talent kind of budding out with Puka Nacua. Um, here's something to consider. The Rams are going to be without their starting running back. So my guess, and from what I've seen, is that they're going to be using Darrell Henderson Jr., who is not a bad running back by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't think he's someone that you can particularly rely on or that you can kind of give control over. Granted, they probably weren't going to do that anyway. I think that they were still going to plan on utilizing Kupp and Nacua as their main producers for this game. I just think that with the defense, with Micah Parsons, and uh, despite Diggs being out, I think that the Cowboys are still going to be able to produce and hold them to uh, hold them to a manageable game. And I think the Cowboys will come out on top.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I,
Moving us over to the NFC North, we have a showdown between the Vikings and the Packers. Andy Flanagan special. Uh, with that in mind, I think that really Jordan Love isn't producing in the way that I thought he would. As I should not have cashed out on the Jordan Love hype train so early, or like I shouldn't have like continued to bet on him because when we saw him that first week against the Bears, I thought he looked pretty decent. He was connecting, especially in that on some of the preseason games, which is kind of my naivete showing. Um, I thought he was going to be able to kind of not take the league by storm or anything like that, but or at least be a competent quarterback. That showing against the Broncos was pretty awful. And if you're losing to the Broncos and you're letting the Broncos kind of hold you to 17 points, it's a bad showing. Only throwing for 190 yards. He threw for 2 TDs and one interception. I mean, normally that wouldn't be that bad, but when you have that amount of yards, you're in trouble. So give me the Vikings on this one. I think that they're going to continue to ride the train that they've been on.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one, but I'm not just gonna repeat. I agree with everything you just said, but the one thing the Vikings need to win this game, and it's what I said is their main point for them being 2-0 is the turnover battle. They need to not turn the ball over, and I feel like they can. Jordan Love, this Packers offense, I feel like they can turn them over pretty easily, but they can't be in a slugfest of turnovers. Kirk and the whole offense just needs to protect the ball, make sure they can get their points on the board when they're in their red zone and everything. And that's how the Vikings are going to win. They just need to win this turnover battle. That's really what's been keeping them out. And I think they get back to 500 at 4-4. And moving on
Yeah,
to, or
no, I guess this is just the beginning of the climb back for the Vikings.
yeah, and I mean they could. I mean, what they got Packers. I know they got the Broncos somewhere. They got some games where they could be like 6, 7, or 6 or 7-4, and then I don't know, back in the NFC North race. But moving on to an interesting game here is the Falcons Titans. I mean, it's rumored that Will Levis is going to start this game, which will be huge for the rookie. But I don't think it's going to be Tannehill. It's either going to be Levis or Willis. I feel like we'll know probably Saturday night, early Sunday morning. But I don't think that's really the answer for the Titans right now. And just because I don't think either one of those quarterbacks will play the greatest, I'm going to have to say Falcons here. I mean, they did win in Tampa last week, so Desmond Ridder did win away from home, which is surprising. And I think the Falcons do need to get Bijan involved more, and they need to not turn the ball over inside the 5-yard line. But yeah, I think with this Titans team is reeling, especially with them trading away one of their best defensive players in Kevin Byard. They're reeling, and and I think the Falcons will be able to win this one. It will be close though. It won't be like any blowout or anything.
Yeah, I agree. I think that despite the Titans kind of indicating that they're offloading all their assets and just kind of can really commit to the rebuild, um, we saw rumors that not only is DeAndre Hopkins on the table, but so is Derrick Henry. So you're really kind of offloading all of your kind of aging assets at this point. But I think this may be the beginning of the end for the Titans, especially since they're kind of already in must-win territory against the Falcons this particular week, and I don't think that they're going to be able to get it done. I think that the Falcons do find a way to win. Um, I mean, when you're coached by Mike Vrabel, you're always in it. Um, for the most part, obviously. I mean, it doesn't mean you're never going to get blown out. They got blown out by the Bengals. Sorry, they got blown out by the Browns. Um, but they've been able to keep things close. I just think that they recognize that at 2-4 right now, there's just not much more that they can do. And getting rid of Kevin Byard for really,
Not
it was a bit of a
much.
steal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they know that it's over, and I just think that the Falcons uh, it's hard to predict what they'll do. They had Bijan Robinson sitting on the sidelines for what we didn't know was like a headache or something until like the third quarter. So it was just Arthur Smith is just cooking up a bunch of weird stuff in Atlanta. So it's kind of hard to say
Just let them cook.
each week to week what it's going to look like, but I mean, it worked last week. Let's against a team that I think is probably less prepared than the Bucks, I would take the Falcons. All right, moving us on to the next game, we have the Patriots and the Dolphins. Patriots coming off big, big win recently, especially in the division. I don't think that this is going to be able to carry them through, though. Um, I don't think that this is the inevitable part of the season where the Dolphins kind of crash up against uh, some issue. In last year, we had the Tua concussion issue, which was awful. No one wants to see that. Um, but I just feel like there's like a timer on the Dolphins. I can't help but feel that it just seems that over the course of the season, they have everything kind of set in motion, and then out of nowhere, there's this big issue that comes up and kind of derails the ride. And as much as I think that that will probably happen and there will be some issue that comes up, it doesn't necessarily have to be injury related. I think that this is not the week, and I think the Dolphins pull it out. Um, Tyreek Hill has been an absolute monster. He said he's aiming for 2000, like the first rookie, sorry, not first rookie, first 2000-yard season for a receiver, and he's on pace to get that. Um, so I don't think that he'll have his most productive game of the year by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that Tua will be able to lead this offense to a victory.
Yeah, I mean, they've already played once in week 2 or 3, and it came down to that crazy lineman lateral that should have been a first down. But yeah, I agree. I especially since it's in Miami, um, they they'll be a little upset about uh a week ago, and they may start a little slow, but I don't think there's no way Mac Jones can keep up with Tua and Hill and Waddle and Mostert. There's just absolutely no way. I think it could be close for a quarter and a half, but it'll pull away with them, especially since it's in Miami. I got Miami winning by a couple possessions because I mean you could be right, something big could happen, but I don't. They lost Christian Gonzalez. I don't see a corner being or two corners being able to cover Will Hill and Waddle at the same time. So I'm gonna have to give it to the Dolphins here. Then moving on to an interesting matchup, Saints Colts. They both played in competitive games last week. Colts, we already talked about the DPI on DPJ, and then Saints with the Foster Morale drop that would have tied the game for him. I think Gardner Minshew has been a game manager like he always is, but what has really stood out is Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor. Both of them running the rock. 'Cause I mean they ran pretty decent against the Browns. I mean, it's the Browns, but against like the Saints defense is good, but it's not quite on that level as the Browns. And I think they'll be able to assert the run game, which is how they've won. I mean, you can see their wins this year, and the run has been really like they've had a great run game in almost every one of their wins, whether it was with Anthony Richardson or Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor. So I think this Colts run game will just end up being too much. And with this Olave drama, I assume he'll play, but you never know with all this speeding drama. But yeah, I think the Colts win.
Yeah, give me the Colts as well. I hate talking about kind of like the soft aspects of each of these teams because I feel like I've done it for every one of these. But with that Carr Olave connection, it just seems that like something's not clicking, especially since, and I don't know if like people were talking about, I don't know if this was the case, but people have been talking about how on that particular drive in the Saints' most recent game, where Olave, according to Derek Carr, stopped running. So he like what it looked like was that he threw it away, and he was
because of
mad that
Olave stopped
that
running, right?
Olave stopped running. Yeah, but people were also coming at Carr kind of under the assumption that he didn't throw it away and was getting mad at Olave for not being able to catch it. So there's all this weird discussion about where the team stands and the way that I'm a little bit concerned about how they're not connecting. Um, and having lost to teams that we kind of have already kind of vetted as being mediocre and keeping it close as objective with objectively bad teams and that of the Panthers, in which they only won by 3 points. I don't see the Saints winning this game out, and I think that in all reality, I think that the Colts are going to be able to drive down. I mean, with Gardner Minshew at the helm, like the Colts team actually looked really good, and I'm upset that we don't get to see Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
but uh, I think Jonathan Taylor is just coming into his own again. Like he's finally going to come up to the point. I'm not saying like this is going to like be the like at the peak where he was last year or anything of that sort, but I think Colts win rather convincingly. So leads us over to an exciting game for me because I get to see CJ Stroud play again, but I don't anticipate this will be an exciting game. Like just to watch, I think this will be kind of a bit of a blowout. We get to see the first two picks of the draft play, and that is CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Um, two teams that in my opinion, in very different circumstances. CJ Stroud has hit the ground running, and Bryce Young has not. Now, I don't know if you can put that on either quarterback in and of itself, but CJ Stroud is producing in a D'Amico Ryan led Texans team, um, and they're shining. I think that Tank Dell connection with CJ Stroud is they're going to continue to try and hit that, and this defense is actually pretty solid as well, and going up against Panthers offense who just can't pass the ball at all. I think that they're going to look even better. So give me the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, this should be a no-brainer. This Texans offense has been on an absolute tear, and they've had a whole week to recover from all their injuries and stuff. I think CJ Stroud will have a field day, and he'll that like we'll look at when we're looking at offensive rookie of the year. This is the game we'll look at if Bryce Young's able to bounce back. How did they go against each other? And CJ Stroud, I think, will outperform Bryce Young. And this is painful for me to say, but this will be a huge part in Stroud's offensive rookie of the year campaign. And I get the Texans winning by a pretty decent amount because I just don't. I think the Texans offense will be able to put a lot of points on. I mean, they've proven to do that. They've been able to score at will, you could almost say, against these mediocre defenses. So I think I think they get this one.
Yeah, I agree. The I mean, the Texans actually haven't scored that many more points than the Panthers. The Panthers have scored over the course of the entire season 112, and the Texans have scored 135. But that stat alone doesn't tell you the story of where
I
either of
mean,
these
one
teams are at.
team's what? What's the Texans record? Is
0
it
and 4. They are unwinnable. They haven't won anything.
no? I'm talking Texans.
Oh, pardon me, 3 and 3.
Yeah, and the Panthers haven't won a game, so that just says it all right there. I mean, you probably pretty much.
Yeah, I agree.
Then moving on to a quite interesting game, Brown Seahawks. Um, you told me today that it's looking like PJ Walker's going to play, which is
It's
not a good.
confirmed. Yeah,
It is confirmed. So okay, so PJ Walker's strapping up for Cleveland this week. Is it Deshaun's shoulder or is it concussion?
it's not a concussion. It's his shoulder,
It's his shoulder
and this
still.
injury that no one knows anything about except for Deshaun and his doctors
Okay.
and Stefanski, and none of them are being perfectly clear about it.
That's not really a good sign then. And I saw them struggle enough against the Colts and against the 49ers where I think the Seahawks will be able to put points up. Unless if we have another Myles Garrett showcase, I don't think the Browns win this one. This the defense is going to need to step up huge. They're going to need to create turnovers to give PJ Walker short fields or score themselves. And like you say, Dustin Hopkins needs to have another huge game. And I just don't see all these things happening against the Seahawks team with DK, Kenneth Walker, Lockett, Geno. I think they'll be able to play well enough to where they beat the Browns. I think no matter what, this game's going to be close. It's gonna come down to the Browns defense, and I don't think Geno will make enough or this offense will make enough mistakes to give the Browns that good of a chance here. But I could see it going either way. This is a very like game where you don't really know.
I actually am going to take the Browns on this one. I think the Browns will find a way to win. And not because of the production by PJ Walker, although I do think he gets better. Like he's not a bad player. And I've been saying this from the jump. PJ Walker, even though he is an XFL quarterback, he was productive with the Panthers while he was on the Panthers, and he was kind of slept on. Like back in the back during the time that he was actually producing, he was able to keep a season. And I believe this is the season where they brought back Cam. He eventually got the start and was able to lead them to, I don't know what their win record was, but I remember that offense being productive. And when I heard he was coming to Cleveland, I wasn't thrilled by any stretch of the imagination, but like it's good to hear that I've at least had positive thoughts about this guy before. Now, would I prefer to have Jacoby Brissett back? Yes, I would, because he knows this. He knows the offense. He knows everyone on the team. He knows he has relationships built up there. It's better, but I I think I do trust PJ Walker on this one. Um, One thing that the Seahawks have struggled with is going against solid or at least competent defenses. All of their wins have come against some pretty slouchy teams in terms of the defense, except for the Lions, in which they won that
I
in
mean, they beat
OT,
the. Oh
which
no,
is,
they lost to the Rams.
yes, they lost the Rams 30-13. They lost to the Bengals 17-13. Um, and they lost to they lost to the Rams and they lost to the Bengals. Everyone else they've won against have struggled for sure. That includes the Lions, um, which I think kind of goes against the grain of what I'm saying. The Panthers, the Giants, and the Cardinals. So I think this will be the hardest defense that they've ever gone against. I think not this isn't anti-Geno slander because I'm a fan of Geno as well. But I think if you're able to, if the Bengals defense is able to cause the turnover issues that Geno struggled with in that game, the Browns should be able to do it as well, especially when you have a better pass rush, better corners, and better DTs. Like this, just by and large, is completely better. So give me the Browns. It's going to be super gross, and I'm going to have a heart attack on my chair, like I have these past other 2 weeks. But I think we do find a way to win. Okay, here we go. Another AFC North team against a very competent defense. We have that in that of the Bengals versus the 49ers. Brain, I'm gonna let you take this one first because I believe you probably have more to say about it than I do, and I want to hear what you think.
Okay. What the storyline of the Bengals all year? Joe Burrow, his calf, right? And we saw strides of him uh getting better, especially in Arizona and against Seattle. And now he's had a whole 2 weeks where he can just rest. I mean, he's obviously practiced everything, but like this calf he's been able to treat it right, thankfully. And looking on the other end, 49ers are their last two have had two disappointing games in a row. Debo and Trent Williams are still looking to be out. I I don't know what's going on with Brock Purdy. I think the Bengals pass rush will be able to disturb Brock a little bit to set. And other than McCaffrey, there were in Kittle, which are I mean are two major targets, but their wide receiver core hasn't stepped up in the way you think it should. Even with Debo, you can say. So I think, and we got a healthy team, man. I think the Bengals find a way to win. I do, I think this game will be a close back and forth, but I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase will be able to find a connection late to win this game.
Um,
I
I
imagine you
agree. I
disagree.
think, well, I don't think that they're going to win. I think the 49ers are going to win. I think the thing is, though, I have over the course of this entire podcast been saying that the Bengals are mishandling the Joe Burrow injury to like an Andrew Luck degree of incompetence. I think that that ends here, though. I think Joe Burrow will be able to perform. I just think even with Joe Burrow being able to form, and let's say that they get back to kind of like that Bengals offense that we expect, where we have like the earth, wind, and fire of Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. Three receivers who keep in mind, really other than Jamar, who have been struggling to produce in every capacity, every understanding of the word. I think that even despite this being against a pretty good defense, they'll be able to produce. I just think that that still won't be enough with this Niners defense. The big thing to worry about though is Brock Purdy. Will he be able to actually settle down and not make these mistakes that he's been making recently? Because the mistakes that he's made against Cleveland were understandable. The mistakes he made against Minnesota were not.
Yeah.
Um, if he continues to make those problems, the Bengals will win this game easily. They will they will they will be able to actually I think they'll be able to beat the 49ers in a pretty convincing manner. But if he's able to settle in and just rely on the defense and just be competent, I think that it's going to be a punch out, but I think the 49ers do win it. Um, I think here's the thing. If Joe Burrow comes back and still plays bad, I think now is the time to press the button. Like the panic button. Not like trade anything or anything like
Okay,
that,
but
but
this
like
game's going to be hard to tell just because of how elite this defense is.
but that's true, but you have to show something. Like
Yeah.
Joe Burrow to be expected is expected to be like a top three quarterback in the NFL at this point. I expect him
Mhm.
to be that because I believe that's what he is. So
He's
if he
being
doesn't
paid
show
like
like a
that
couple
too.
moments, yeah, if he doesn't show a couple moments in which he's able to produce like that, even against the best defense in the NFL, like that doesn't mean you have to get a win, but like it should be of concern.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. But that has nothing to do with I I don't hate any of these guys. I don't hate them like I hate Aiden Hutchinson, but but I hope for the Bengals' sake that Joe's going to be able to come back and produce.
And moving on, a game we saw 2 weeks ago, Chiefs Broncos. I don't think there's really much to say on this game just because it happened so little ago. I think the same thing's going to happen pretty much, where the Broncos offense is gonna continue to underperform, and they're not gonna be able to stop Mahomes and Kelsey. I mean, they've been Mahomes and Kelsey specifically have been on a tear these past couple weeks. So I think this and I think this is gonna be another blow. I don't know really what else to say, especially since we've seen it like 13 days ago, or it would be, yeah, 13.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's just there's really not much more to say other than we saw this earlier. It didn't go well, and
It won't go well again.
it will not go well again. Chiefs. All right, moving on to our last three games of the week. Ravens Cardinals. The storyline of this game coming into it, we have this stellar team who really has shown no weakness other than the wide receivers, but they seem to have figured that out against a Cardinals team who we thought was contenders, and they've just kind of we've slowly decreased our expectations. I think that both teams are kind of going to leave this situation in the exact same spot that they came in. I think the Ravens are going to be flying high again, and I think the Cardinals are going to show moments. They're not going to be able to get anything really worth commenting about. Give me Ravens. I think Lamar is going to continue to have a crazy game, and I think this is just going to be an easy one for them to write off.
Yeah, the Cardinals have got worse and worse as the weeks have gone on, especially offensively, and especially missing James Conner. They still have Marquise Brown-Zeckers, and who know? Kyler won't play this week. We would have found that out by now, I would assume.
Yeah, that would
But
be a
with him,
story.
yeah, and so I just don't see them getting an upset against the Ravens. The only way it would happen is the wide receivers fumble the bag again.
Hmm.
That would have to be the only reason. Like the Ravens will make the mistakes to lose this game. So like if they lose it, but I think Ravens win pretty controllably, and it'll be similar to last week. So I have to agree with you on this one. And then going Bears Chargers next. Um, I don't see Justin Fields playing. It's looking like the rookie QB is going to play again, and with this Chargers offense and this Bears defense isn't the greatest. I don't see him being able to stay up with Herbert and Eckler and Allen, and I think the Chargers won this one pretty controllably. I mean, there's not really much else to say. I don't think you should expect a real high scoring game from the Bears here.
No, I think that it'll be not that close by any means, but like, is it Tyson Bagnet? Yeah, Tyson
I'm
Baggett.
blanking on his name right
I,
now.
I I'm trying to I haven't figured out the pronunciation yet. Um, it could be a thriller. Not betting on it. I think that the Chargers, like, they're just going to be searching for a win. They're at 2-4 right now. They basically have the same. I mean, barring one more loss, they have nearly a identical win rate to the Bears. So if Brandon Staley finds a way to lose this game, he could be the first coach fired. Cause
I
like
agree.
that may be the thing that we're. If I'm GM of the Chargers and I see that our coach Brandon Staley just lost to the Bears, who literally had the plagues of Egypt forced upon that franchise this season, I think that he's got to go. So that could be interesting to look at. That may be the most interesting thing about this game.
Yeah,
But
well,
I don't know if that's clear enough. But at Chargers,
yeah.
finally, Monday night, Raiders at Lions in a game where the Lions are just kind of limping into their home stadium, upset after what the Ravens did to them. Um, I think that the Lions defense is really going to just kind of keep the status quo of what the Raiders offense looks like. I mean, they had Brian Hoyer in there at quarterback, which was kind of an interesting decision by McDaniels. For some reason, they've just completely refused to give Davante Adams the ball, and I think that that continues. I think that this Lions defense is going to be able to kind of shut up the Raiders, and Goff is going to be able to produce. Not that we're going to be having these conversations like, are the Lions the best team in the NFL? Because I think that we kind of answered that question. And for some reason, Stephen A came out and said that he thought they were the best, which I thought that was a bit premature. I do think that the Lions do come out with a win, though.
Yeah, Brian Hoyer, which I don't think Jimmy G will play. He's questionable as of right now, but Brian Hoyer did not look great on Sunday for the Raiders.
Hmm.
And yes, the Lions just got housed by the Ravens, but I think this is the best case bounce back opponent for them, where they got a Raiders team that's 3-4. They're not playing real great. Um, and I think Jared Goff. I don't see Monty coming back. I think they should give him a little more rest, but I think
Hmm.
this offense and defense will bounce back, and the Lions faithful will show up to this game. And they'll be loud. I mean, so I think just all the everything in quite like is in favor of the Lions. So I think the Lions win this one. I think they do it pretty convincingly because I if they score more than 14 points, Brian Hoyer, I don't think will score 14 points, so I don't think he'll win this. And
Hmm.
the thing that will stop the Lions from winning is them losing the turnover battle, which I've said in multiple games, and that's just because that's one of the biggest factors in football, and they got to stay clean. They can't give Brian Hoyer any short fields or any chances to win this game, and I don't think they will. Dan Campbell will have them boys in shape, and I think the Lions win this one.
I agree. All right, with that all wrapped up, let us know if we're wrong. Let us know if you think we're clowns, and feel free to let us know if take what we said and make us look like real idiots on the internet. That's what we do this for. Um, so thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Yep. See you guys when the Commanders win, baby. Peace.
Peace.